Here's your assignment for this week. Instead of having midweek assignments, you have only one end of week assignment, which is kind of a comprehensive exploration of these things. How does that work? We'll explain in a second. Ultimately, you have to respond to three different groups: a group A subject B, and a subject C, and then tell me what you find interesting in each or how kind of each is related to an overarching topic of your choice. Let's look at each of these items and kind of give you a little bit brief about what it is, and then there'll be more in the lecture which follows. The first is a cartoon from Doonesbury by Gary Trudeau. Gary Trudeau and Doonesbury was a rather long-running American funny series aimed at sort of the literate and elevated political and cultural scene. One of the characters in the series was a surfer dude, right? And kind of looks like Weisbecker in his later years, both versions really. But don't judge those without hair, whatever. That's what the first one is. It's not necessarily one of the three groups that you have to respond to, but it does make a nice contrast for the three groups that you do have to respond to, because it's an outside version looking in. So, the three groups that you have to respond to are all names that you might recognize except for one. The first is Weisbecker, and his are two excerpts from the book that we chose as book club. The first is details his arrival in Puerto Viejo, and the second details his exploits in his efforts in drug trafficking. Both are PDFs. They may take a second to open. Done with Adobe from here at home, so sorry about that, but they do open. Give them a chance. Read both and then use that as one thing. The second thing, or second group, is a single thing. This is A. B. Stessex the player, about Bunker Spreckles. Interesting character, really interesting character. If you find him interesting enough, there is a longer documentary about him, and I've given you, just for interest rather, the link here to the trailer for the documentary. Also an interesting character for character anthologies, if you're thinking in terms of that. So is he in that matter, right? So is this author, as well as his subject. All fair game. That's subject B. Subject C that you have to respond to is Smith and his brand new work, Cocaine and Surfing, 2018, I believe. It includes the introduction from a second author, Matt Warsaw, longtime editor of Surfer magazine, and author of several other things that we encountered at various times during the year. More about that in lecture. But those are your three groups. So you must respond in some collective way to the things that you find interesting in A, the things that you find interesting in B, and the things that you find interesting in C, right? Then you have to make a choice. Either look at Chaz Smith co-authored article, Family Values, and it features the Fletcher family, a name that you might recognize from Westwick and Newshall. A number of you commented on him. His name, Herbie Fletcher. This is a look at his son, Christian Fletcher, a longtime radical character in surfing and pro surfing. Brotherhood of the Eternal Love is, I think in lecture I refer to it as Brotherhood of Eternal Sunshine, but it's the same group. It's the drug running and sort of avant-garde surf artistry group. This is interesting. It's a multimedia article. It's archives as well as video, as well as some text put out by Surfline, right? More about that in lecture 2. So you have to come up with a way in which to sort of discuss these things in overarching fashion. How might you do that? You could look at it as culture versus counterculture, right? What's the popular culture of surfing versus the counterculture of surfing? You could look at it as anti-establishment and establishment within the counterculture. If surfing is a counterculture, right, then there's establishment and anti-establishment, right? You're using the theories of Cohen at that point and Hebdige to some degree. You could look at it in terms of, okay, just drugs and surfing, right? That seedy side of surfing. How does that sort of portrayed and cataloged in various ways, which are all sort of explained further in the lecture which follows. But all right, so here's what I found interesting about drugs and surfing in this. Here's what I found interesting in drugs and surfing in this. And here's what I found interesting about drugs and surfing in this. Not so sure that it tails down into this. Definitely doesn't that. So drugs and surfing kind of makes your choice for you if you did something like that. Or you could do establishment and anti-establishment, right? What's the anti-establishment in this? Right? What's the establishment and anti-establishment? What's the anti-establishment and establishment in this? Right? Establishment, anti-establishment. What's the? You get the idea. But in some way, you've got to choose how to respond to these three groups. And again, here they are: A, B, and C, plus your choice. This one or este. Okay? Bueno. All right. That's it.